This is the Positive EQ Perspective, where you'll find a more positive outlook on life by developing your emotional intelligence. My name is Kirsty Gwynn. I'm a coaching psychologist and speaker, and I'm passionate about helping people to experience more calm, contentment, and joy every day. Today, we're talking about an easy way to recharge and calm your busy mind at the same time. So one thing that I absolutely love about London is how many parks there are and how much nature there is, even in the very middle of a big city. So I come from South Africa, and I moved to Cape Town when I was about 18 years old, I believe, with my family. And there's so much nature in Cape Town. And one thing that I really, really loved and appreciated about moving to London is that there is maybe not quite as much nature as Cape Town, but it comes pretty close. From any part of London, you can pretty much be guaranteed that you'll be able to get to a park within 20 minutes. And one of my favorite places to go in London is a place called Kew Gardens. So Kew Gardens is this just beautiful botanical garden where it's just so peaceful, and I love to often go there with friends or to go there with my husband, but sometimes I'll even just go there by myself. And I'll particularly do this if, firstly, I really enjoy it, so I think I'll go there normally, but if I'm feeling stressed or I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling down at that time, it can be so lovely to spend just a whole day there. And I feel a really, really deep sense of peace while I'm there, and my stress just seems to melt away. Perhaps it feels like less significant. I don't know if you've experienced that kind of thing, that when you're in nature, that your stress just disappears. It's really a very different kind of distraction to watching TV or scrolling social media. And rather, when we're out in nature, it feels like that time and space that we're giving to ourselves is really, really nurturing our well-being. I know for me and for many of my friends, during lockdown, getting into nature was something that we really relied on. And I hear this from a lot of clients too. In most countries, getting into nature was something that we were still allowed to do. And so it might even be something that you've increased more and more over the past year. Why is this relevant? Well, this is Mental Health Awareness Week here in the UK, and the focus this year is on that relationship between mental health and nature. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today, is what is that link and how can nature actually be so good for our well-being? So that is our really easy way to recharge and at the same time to calm our busy mind, particularly if we're experiencing a lot of negative thoughts and we're kind of craving that sense of peace and that sense of calm. So getting out into nature has been found to have some pretty profound effects on well-being. Nature shows numerous benefits for mental health and well-being. So one study, and this was published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, it found that activity in the brain in areas related to repetitive negative thinking. So we call this rumination, right? Those negative thoughts are going round and round in your head. It feels like they're really hard to control. We feel we're very focused on certain negative emotions, and that it's that kind of negative thinking that we find very difficult to switch off from, and we can feel that it really pulls our mood down. It can be a major trigger for increased anxiety, or a major trigger for low mood or depression. So this is actually a key brain area related to depression. And what this study found is that when people spent just 90 minutes, right, an hour and a half, just walking in nature, so walking in, a forest, a field, whatever it was, 90 minutes walking in nature, activity in this brain area reduced, right? And this is, I think, pretty amazing and enlightening research just to understand that is something we can do to prevent that brain area from becoming too active, but from also being able to calm it down. So it makes sense. And maybe you found yourself craving nature before when your mind has been particularly busy. Maybe you've noticed that it can provide some relief from that and really calm our mind down. There's another study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology, and that looked at, rather than increasing the amount of nature we have in our day, in that specific day or that hour, that moment, what if we invite the participants just to notice the nature that was already around them? So that's what participants were invited to do. They paid attention to the nature that, was already around them. So perhaps their house plants, the trees just on the street where they would walk, whatever nature they were experiencing already, without increasing that. They were encouraged to, photograph the objects or scenes if they felt that it evoked emotion in them, and maybe to provide a description of those emotions. And after just 2 weeks, which is really quick for a well-being intervention, after just 2 weeks, they saw higher levels of positive emotion. They found experiences of awe, right? And there's that sense of wonder that we sometimes get when we, look at a beautiful night sky, or we're just standing on a beautiful beach or in some beautiful place, and we feel like it's bigger than us, essentially. They felt more connected to people, nature, and life as a whole, so just more connected in general. And there were even higher levels of pro-social tendencies, so meaning that they were just felt generally friendlier and more accommodating to other people. And maybe this is why, in a city, we often feel like people are less friendly. And what I've noticed is that the minute I'm in nature, if it's like, I'm walking in Kew Gardens, or I go, go out for a hike or something like that, and drive a little bit out of London, people seem to be friendlier, right? They greet you, they talk to you, just talk to people generally more. Those random conversations happen a lot more easily. Perhaps this is why. Nature can really help us to find a greater sense of perspective, and it's something that we can be proactive about using to improve our well-being. And maybe you're wondering, but why is it so good, right? Maybe you intuitively have experienced this and you felt these benefits, but you're wondering, what's the reason for this? And I think it really comes down to that it gives us the opportunity, or it facilitates the opportunity for us to practice being present, which is one of the keys to a positive perspective. When we're in nature, we're just naturally more present, right? Instead of being caught up in thought, our focus is drawn to our senses. So we're really taking notice of what is available to us in the present moment, rather than being caught up in our heads and caught up in our thoughts. So, maybe we begin to notice the sound of the birds tweeting. Maybe we notice the feeling of the sunshine on our skin, or the cold of the wind on our skin. The sound of, if it's like autumn, or the ground, the leaves crunching beneath our feet, the feel of kind of as we step in any mud, let's say, the color of the spring flowers, right? Whatever the season, whatever the time it is, we're in a state of being rather than doing. We're noticing what we can see, what we can smell, right? What we can hear, what we can feel. We're not so caught up in our head, we're really in the moment. So how can we bring more nature into our lives, right? How can we do this as a way to boost our mental health and well-being? Because this really is one of the easiest ways that we can calm a busy mind. It doesn't take much intention. Most of us find this happens pretty naturally. And that's pretty amazing that we have something like that where we don't really have to try. It just seems to happen automatically for us. So one thing that you can do is when if you typically work in an office, and when you start to go back into work, or whenever you're traveling anywhere, seeing if you can travel via nature. So if you were going to take public transport, seeing, well, can I actually walk a little bit in nature before I get on that further bus stop? If you go a specific route to work, is there a way that you can bring a walk into nature on that journey, so that you can bring it in to your daily life in amongst, or as part of your commute, let's say. Maybe taking a walk over your lunch break. I think this is particularly valuable if we're working from home at the moment. Making sure that you get out in not necessarily into nature. So if you're lucky enough, as I said, London is wonderful like that, but I'm aware that many cities aren't, right? So if you are able to get to a park, that's great. But otherwise, remembering that participants saw a lot of benefits by just focusing on the nature that they already had, even if there wasn't much around. So just walking down the street and noticing any trees, just taking some time to really, stop and appreciate some flower bed that you walk past, and whatever it is, you're walking by a river or a canal, if that's possible for you, bringing some nature into your day. Sitting in the garden, if you have a garden, right? Maybe you have a garden and you've been meaning for a while to be more active about gardening. I know a friend who has an allotment, right, and really, really enjoys spending weekends there. Bringing plants into your home, right, is, I think, something a lot of us, again, have done during lockdown. I know that this is something we've certainly done. Just having those plants at home helps to bring that little bit of nature in, and just spending a little bit of time tending to your plants and the bit of nature that you brought into your home, or maybe even buying a bunch of flowers, can really, really help your brain to naturally, tune into that, be more present, and just by doing that, we're going to feel better. The more that you make nature a natural part of your everyday life, the more peaceful and present you're going to feel. Well, that's it from me. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Every subscriber counts, and it helps this information to reach more people. Thank you, and I'll see you next week on the Positive EQ Perspective. If you're looking to calm negative thoughts, accept yourself, and live joyfully, then you need my free roadmap to overcome negative thinking. You'll discover 7 steps to follow, as well as 3 mistakes most people make trying to improve their mindset and life that only make things worse. Visit positiveeq.com/free. That's positiveeq.com/free.